Ghostbusters, 2016.
Hey everyone, I'm Josh,
And I'm Brandon.
and we're the Curbstone Savants. We're going to be talking about Ghostbusters 2016 today. There's a lot that can be said about this film, and there's a lot we're going to say about the film, just to put it bluntly out there. There's been a little bit of controversy that has marred both this release as well as the trailer that came out from it, and now there is a reboot, a new sequel, Ghostbusters 3. Direct line to the original 2 that came out. And as far as that goes, what do you hope to see out of that before we dive into the full analysis of 2016's Ghostbusters?
Ooh, what do I hope to see out of the new Ghostbusters that's coming out 2020?
Because we've got Finn Wolfhard,
Yeah.
which that can go either way. I know you know.
Yeah. I think that is easier by answering what I don't want to see.
Okay.
First off, let me start off by saying Finn Wolfhard is a excellent addition to any movie these days. Any movie that he does, he takes it seriously. His acting is great. That is displayed in Stranger Things. It's like they said the synopsis of the movie is ghosts, small town, kids, 13, 14 years of age, catching and trapping ghosts. I really hope that that's not the running theme that they have for this movie. That's what I don't want to see.
It's a basic premise, though.
It's a very basic premise,
but it's a rickety framework for
very,
build off of. But
very.
Oftentimes these things start with just simple
Yeah.
napkin scrawls. We can call
it. And given the turmoil that these movies have gotten, like, oh yeah, this movie has all female cast, and just people freaking out. I don't want to be one of those people. I want to see where this movie is going to go. I originally heard that, and it's not something that I necessarily like, but it is in the beginning stages, so they do have times to polish and turn this into something that will be viable. And
it's
I
only
really
been
think
announced a year in advance, so that's not to say that they haven't been working on it more than that.
Absolutely,
a year is an incredibly short amount of time to film something as big as this you would presume this to be,
which could be a bad thing and a good thing as well. Because quite frankly, rushed movies, you can tell.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if this is something, if they have a script and a cast and everything that they truly believe in, and they've pushed forward with it, and all the pieces fall into place,
that's something to be said. So moving into the main characters, just diving headfirst into this. I know you have a lot of talking points on this, Brandon, so I'm going to give you the floor.
Yeah, okay, so I understand that this movie got a lot of flack for having a full female cast, but me personally, I feel that is completely unwarranted. We have 4 amazing actresses, Kate McKinnon, Leslie Jones, Kristen Wiig, and, of course, Melissa McCarthy. All 4 of these women were very well cast into this movie. There are parts where you can see their chemistry just bouncing off one another back and forth. There's a really good part where Leslie Jones and Melissa McCarthy are going back and forth. And I'm talking about Kristen Wiig's boyfriend in the movie, and
I love that.
Yeah, it was so funny because you have Leslie Jones talking about how hot and sexy this guy is, and Melissa McCarthy is just like, "Oh no, there's nothing hot about this man," and you can tell that part, unlike a lot of the parts in the movie, were from a script. That part, they just let them have fun with it, and I really like that aspect of the movie because it was kind of far and few in between, and it kind of felt like a breath of fresh air, didn't it?
Yeah, when you get those really rare takes of genuine humor that it didn't feel forced upon you, like the plague, it was just, it came across as genuine, and it felt good, it felt natural.
And you also have Kate McKinnon. I really loved her character.
Absolutely fantastic.
The more and more I see of Kate McKinnon, the more and more I actually love, because she has been in several movies where she is a supporting actress, and she really takes that supporting actress role and always runs with it.
Owns it.
A lot of times she kind of takes over. She kind of takes over as the star of the show. Yeah, she really pushes it. Like, for instance, she was in The Spy That Dumped Me. She was also in, what was it? There was a movie that she did with Scarlett Johansson about a bachelorette party gone wrong.
You're the one that told me about that.
Yeah, it's just for Kate McKinnon alone. Please watch that movie.
Okay.
It's it's not one of the best movies. Nobody's going to win an Oscar for it anytime soon, but it was a really good movie. The cast does very well. The downside,
they can stand on their own.
Yeah, they can definitely stand on their own. The downside of this, however, is that
you do have that force-fed humor that they have to cranking them out like quotas.
Force-fed humor, and I feel like they dropped the ball.
Comedy plane. Oh no!
Just dropped it all over the floor.
You still have to eat that though.
Right, you still have to eat it, and it's like this could have been so well because my biggest gripe with the script is Melissa McCarthy and Kristen Wiig have worked together before with Bridesmaids. That movie was absolutely excellent.
Yeah.
And what is wrong with taking what made their chemistry so good in that movie and putting it into Ghostbusters? And I understand that that's a rated R movie. Ghostbusters is the PG-13 movie, but
I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
Yeah.
I think that they just didn't understand how to handle it.
I would
back
have
to
to
that
agree.
force fed.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Drip fed IV straight to the veins. Like, here's your Ghostbusters. Well, that's an ibuprofen equivalent, but sure, my insurance covers it, I guess.
It was a total missed opportunity. They have all this great talent, and I don't know. At the end of the day, it just feels like they played it too cookie cutter.
Safe.
Yeah, they played it way too safe, and I dare say the first two Ghostbusters were nothing but not safe. Like, initially,
against the conventions of everything that was out at the time, both in terms of satire, in terms of a horror thriller genre, and even almost comedy, in a way. It was entirely unique in its just absolute engrossing of nerd culture and what it meant to be a nerd at the time, I guess, and taking those.
So, to sum it up in a couple of words, great talent, wasted potential. So moving forward, Josh, you can't have a great action movie without a great villain.
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say he's a great villain.
Yeah.
I think he's got, a lot of strong characteristics that could have made him into a great villain if they would have played with him a little bit more.
Yeah.
Same way that, they could have played with the main characters a little bit more. To set him up, we've got Rowan North. That is our main antagonist. He's a lonely, beat-down, basically just loser. He's that weird kid you see sitting at the back of class talking to himself, and they take that to a next level with this, which I think is definitely a strong characteristic that helps define him and his motives going forward. We don't see a lot of it, but we get a few glimpses kind of into his life. He works at the hotel that they eventually visit, and his whole thing is he's going across to the city to each of the ley lines. We don't see this until halfway through the film at this point.
Right.
We've got an hour and 30 minutes into the film, and it's a 2-hour film. And he goes to each of the major ley lines in the city and puts an amplifier down to increase the spiritual signature that's there. And this is what we come to find out, part of his plan all along. He reverse engineered the theories and ideas that Melissa McCarthy and Kristen Wiig's character came up with in their book, and instead of building a stronger barrier, he was like, I'm gonna break that, just break it down, tear that wall down. And we don't directly see this, but I assume that his strong desire to do that and to see that to fruition is due to his lack of faith in humanity, and the fact that he just wants to be done, and he's ready for his time. He wants to push forward and do his own thing. But there's a lot of, I guess, not a lot of red herrings, but there's a few red herrings in the film, because in the beginning sequence we get this fantastic introduction to the Aldrich house, the Aldrich Manor, and Lady Aldrich, who was presumed when she was born by her father to be blessed by the devil's caress because she was so just evil and spiteful and mean. Yeah. They locked her in the basement. We don't see anything else of Lady Aldrich after they go to capture the ghost. She flies away, gets away, forgotten about.
Wasted potential.
But what we also see is we do see mirrors in Rowan's lair with ghosts behind it, presumably to be a physical embodiment of the idea of the barrier separating the ethereal from corporeal forms, or realms rather. And that's great. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
That right there is like, okay, cool. I can see what he's doing. He's gonna amplify the spiritual signatures and break these mirrors and release all the ghosts. Okay, well he does that and kills himself in the process, and the mirrors break. But that doesn't release the ghosts. That happens after he comes back as a ghost. Which, I guess, yeah, they did it. And he possesses Kevin, an entirely useless character.
Yeah, the Ghostbusters secretary, essentially.
Chris Hemsworth, fantastic actor.
Fantastic actor.
Cannot imagine what you got paid to be put in this film. Even after reading the script. I don't even know if there was a script for his character. I wonder if he just wandered onto the Ghostbusters set and was just like, I'm in this film now. Because that's what it feels like. It feels like he's unscripted, and it does not work. It does not work to his favor. He's just a dumb, useless character. Going back to that Aldrich House sequence, that guy that got spooked in the beginning could have very easily served as a catalyst to support Rowan's new body. If he even needs a body. Not sure why that needs to be a thing. He's a ghost. Why does he need to possess another human? Not like we can't just pull some film trickery and just have him look ghostly in his... I guess that'd be less imposing.
Yeah, practical effects.
Yeah. He's gimpy. If you haven't seen the movie, he's gimpy. He would not be a very intimidating figure if they would have just put bright lights and bubbles on him. That wouldn't have made him scary. It wouldn't have made him beautiful. Moving ahead right into the tech. So, I think you also have a lot to say about this.
Yeah, I kind of do have a lot to say about the tech. Okay, so it's a Ghostbusters movie. Anybody that knows about the Ghostbusters name, they don't necessarily know the plot of the movie if they've never seen it, but they understand that it is a movie about men or women in this case. Scientists that have technology that traps ghosts.
Yes.
I want you to focus on those two words. Trap, ghosts. Capture, trap. That is what Ghostbusters has been, the foundation of the movie, if you will. Yeah. Going into Ghostbusters 2016, they show that off. There's a rock show for whatever reason, and then there's a ghoulish-looking dragon kind of thing. Gargoyle, if you will. And that ghost is trapped. And it seems familiar, it seems traditional, much of what we're used to from the other two Ghostbusters movies.
And it's also, that proton pack didn't just come out of nowhere.
Right.
It can be assumed, and pretty much is, that Kate McKinnon's character has been working on this since getting with Abby.
Yeah.
Melissa McCarthy's character.
We can see how the proton packs work, we can see how the trap works, and it feels familiar, but it feels familiar in a really good way.
Yes.
They are using these machines for the first time, and then they trap the ghost. Kate McKinnon or Holtzman, she's walking them through the process of how to use it.
Last minute, of course.
Totally last minute.
Which absolutely fits her character.
Yeah, and it kind of adds to the charm of the film as well, because these four women are just kind of jumping into this role, but not really knowing what they're doing. So the whole scene just works. And then we get to the climax of the film. Rowan, his goal has been his goal has been accomplished. There's ghosts going all over the city. Again, another wasted opportunity. In the first two Ghostbusters movies, there were scenes where the ghosts were let go and running rampant on the city. In the second Ghostbusters film, there was a scene where the ooze was running rampant because of the negative emotions of New York City, and we saw these awesome montages of ghosts just doing their things, scaring the crap out of people, and it was awesome. And we missed that in this new adaptation of the Ghostbusters film, and that's a side note. But the tech, they completely changed the tech. Everybody knows the tech as something that captures these paranormal beings.
It's at the heart of Ghostbusters.
It's the heart of it, and they completely ripped it out of the frame of Ghostbusters.
With the intention, I assume, of trying to add to it.
Right, but what they actually did, however, was we have this scene at the end where they're throwing the ghosts all around, and once the carnage is all done, because they had Holtzman has two guns and she's throwing them around and whipping them around and stuff, and which is fine, but we have unconscious ghosts a sentence that doesn't make sense, even in the film world. And instead of capturing these ghosts, they just threw them around. Like, that whole scene would have been amazing if they just would have taken the tech that we already know and love and have numerous ways of trapping ghosts.
Which they made new devices.
They made new
but
devices.
None of them captured ghosts.
It just throws them around. It was just a unnecessary waste of what Ghostbusters was. They had an opportunity to make that really great, and
there was one good piece of tech,
Yeah.
though, that could have been really easily turned into a capture device. I mean, what that was
the ghost chipper. Remember the
that
aforementioned
almost hurts as much as Hand Inspector Combat.
the aforementioned gargoyle beast was let go and then sucked through a chipper and turned into Jello, which again it doesn't necessarily make sense. Now if there was like a ghost net or something on the back of that and it's trapped in there, cool, but
You know what did a better job of explaining ghost capturing than Ghostbusters 2016?
what's that?
Danny Phantom.
I mean,
And they had a reason for their ghosts to die.
Yeah.
And when the ghosts died in on Earth, they just went back to the ghost realm.
Yeah.
Like they never actually died.
Yeah.
But at this point in the film, these ghosts are getting chipped up into Jello, and the barrier's already broken. There's nowhere for them to go.
So there's no explanation as to why the ghosts are unconscious.
Yes.
Which, again, makes no sense. And also just what throwing around a ghost would do. I mean, at least with movies where you throw in religion and things like that, with holy water and stuff, there's reasons as to why this hurts or weakens or something along those lines. And then we get here and it just... Yeah.
Ghosts don't have consciousness.
That's what makes them ghosts. So for you to have them sprawled out on the streets of New York, unconscious...
It's like, what? Who does that?
Who? I ask.
So moving finally into, well, our favorite portion, final facts, little Q&A. Why don't you kick us off, Brandon?
Okay, so we talked about a lot of things within the video, but a question that I have for you. Do the ends justify the means? You talked about Rowan West specifically, the villain of the movie.
Right.
Do you think that his goal of being this person that let all the ghosts free over New York City, do the ends justify the means for you?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Mostly no, because we never get a direct scene, and you brought this up.
Yeah.
Where we see the consequences of him breaking that barrier down. He talks about it. He hypes himself up about it when our heroes first intercept him right before he kills himself, in fact. Which that alone right there shows you how committed he is to making this happen.
Yeah.
He's willing to actually end his own life under the assumption he is going to become a ghost, which we still don't have rules on whether or not that's definite. And he does it. But no, I don't think so, because he talks about like babes being ripped from the arms of mothers, people being torn apart, just an outright nuisance. But yes, at the same time, because he is so committed to this, he does see it through to the end, and even though he does a really stupid dance sequence, which again where's that fit into your master plan? Would have rather you spiked a random like taxi cab and just have us assume that you killed the driver. That would have been fine.
That would have been awesome.
That would have been great. That would have been great. But we didn't get that.
Yeah.
So I've now got a question for you.
Okay.
Do you think toning the humor down at all for this movie, alone, on its own, toning the humor down, would have made the movie stronger?
Absolutely. Although I mentioned earlier how there were great scenes of chemistry between the characters.
Yes.
That's not what made Ghostbusters great in the first place.
No.
And I understand that they were trying to make this its own movie. They weren't trying to rehash Ghostbusters 1 or Ghostbusters 2. But at the same time, certain things just work. There was a certain amount of dry humor in Ghostbusters 1 and 2 from all 4 of the characters that just it just worked. They didn't have to try very hard because when you look at it, these are scientists. These are people that deal only in fact. They only deal with what they can prove.
With the exception of,
Bill Murray's character.
Mostly the humor
catalyst. He was the most humor. Like the other 3 characters are Ernie Hudson, Dan Aykroyd, and Harold Ramis. They dealt out a lot of dry humor, and it worked really well with the dynamic of the characters and the dynamic of the movies.
Where it complemented those times when Bill Murray was the silly funny.
Oh, it absolutely did. And this, they completely turned that on its head on Ghostbusters 2016. What do you mean? And they turned it on its head where the humor was more blatant. Like, again, another very funny line in the movie when Rowan kills himself and Leslie Jones says, "It smells like hot dogs and regret down here." That's
genuinely
funny.
Laughed.
Genuinely laughed at that.
Laughed.
Because, again, you could tell that she
went for it.
She just went for it. And it was funny. It worked really well. But that does not have to be every single joke in the movie. Again, that's where the original charm of the Ghostbusters came from. I dare say that Ghostbusters, the humor in that movie was what Frasier was in the late 90s, early 2000s. It
Never watched Frasier, but I assume you mean taking a logical person and putting them in illogical settings.
And having the humor be witty.
Yes.
The humor was very witty, highbrow humor in Frasier, as it was in Ghostbusters 1 and 2. There was a perfect balance.
Yeah.
It was all very one-sided with Ghostbusters 2016. And the next question that I had for you was we talked about the stakes. Should the stakes have been different?
They definitely. Man, that's actually a kind of tough question.
Yeah.
Because we could have changed the stakes entirely. We could have done actually playing with what they had going on in the film already. We had maybe 2 or 3 different things that could have completely changed the plot. They could have focused on the Aldrich house and Lady Aldrich being the main baddie. Her eventually turning into a malevolent demon-like spirit, similar, not unlike Vigo. Or
God, I miss Vigo.
Zool. Very easily could have done that. You had a great setup in the beginning of that for that to happen. I expected, my first viewing of that, I expected that. I expected her to be the main villain. I expected to see her later on. We did see her later on. They wasted her. She got away. They could have explored the Leyland thing a little bit more. You know what? Maybe instead of them breaking out of mirrors, maybe he's got to blow up like New York City. And that's a pretty, that's like, okay, hang on, where are you going with that?
Yeah.
Like, that could, where's your movie at that point? They're blowing up the city. Well, okay, maybe not necessarily the whole city, but maybe those specific intersection points of the, you could have framed it in the beginning of the movie as a potential terrorist attack, since the mayor likes to cover everything up in the movie.
Yeah.
And you could have just had these buildings explode. Tie it into social narrative. That's cool, great. And he could have, through these large explosions at these ley line points, caused such a rumbling in the city that the ghosts just started pouring out from a portal that we got a brief glimpse of in the Aldrich house that was just more expanded in the whole city. Could have had a much larger villain at that point, not unlike the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man or something like that.
Yeah.
And then we also could have explored the mirror thing a little bit more. We could have had quick shots throughout the movie of different mirrors and different ghastly hands on there, should they have taken a more serious horror approach to it, and just had brief glimpses of that throughout, made it play with our main character's expectations of what's going on and their perception of reality. And then when he does kill himself, we get quick glimpses of mirrors breaking across the entire hotel and maybe even a few other places in the city, and have a consequence scene like we got in Ghostbusters 1 and 2, ghosts coming out of these mirrors and rushing to attack the nearest person that's there, whether it be to get into their body or to cause them physical harm. So I'm just going to throw this out here. What do you think about Dan Aykroyd and Bill Murray's cameos in this film? I guess Bill Murray had more of a character, but you know what I mean.
I hate using these words, but wasted opportunity. I mean, especially for Dan Aykroyd's character. I mean, he was a taxi driver that said, "I ain't afraid of no ghosts." And
you could have left it, by the way, at the line before that.
You could have, but that whole scene bothered me. Okay? there are, and here's why we need that montage scene again, like in the first and second. Okay, so we realize from watching this that there's ghosts all over the city.
Yes.
We don't see it.
No.
We don't get to see it. We don't get to see the people being pestered and terrorized. But we realize that this is happening. And then we have Dan Aykroyd pull up in his taxi car. He's a driver. And, okay, I get it. You're a taxi driver in New York City. You've seen some stuff.
Yeah.
I get that. I respect that. But at the same time, he was so nonchalant about everything.
Yeah.
And then you have Bill Murray's character that is the skeptic of everything. And
not unlike his character in the first films.
Right.
He is a bit of a skeptic and a realist in those films.
He's a lovable skeptic.
Until he gets proven right, of course. Then he changes his tone entirely.
It changes entirely. And even when he changes in the first two movies, his character, he has fun with it. He doesn't believe what he sees, but he takes it seriously. Yeah. And then we have his character in this movie, who's pretty much just a flash in the pan. It feels like they had Bill Murray in the movie just to say we had Bill Murray in the new Ghostbusters movie. He comes up, he comes up, he's a skeptic, he has to see the ghost, and then he dies.
Like literally in that.
And that's it. And
we don't even see his dead body get carried off by police or anything.
Nothing.
He's gone.
That's just it. He's out the window, and that's it. And these, the only reason we have Ghostbusters 2016 is because of the cultural, the cultural for pop media,
culture,
the pop cultural impact that it had on the late 80s and early 90s, and for them to only be in the movie in such a small capacity like that, I dare say they didn't even need to be it in the first place. And I understand that it's a catch-22.
I didn't think they really wanted to be, if I remember correctly. That was part of some of the controversy that a lot of the fans were having with it.
Yeah, and it's definitely a catch-22 because if you have them in the movie, that's what we got, and if you don't have them in the movie, there's a fan cry out of why weren't they in the movie? They are the originators of this great franchise. How can you not have them in the movie? But
that's why it's so important to understand and pull from your source material and be respectful about it.
Yeah.
Any other additional questions you want to throw in?
Okay, so we've talked about the rights and the wrongs of this movie. In which direction would you have gone in? I understand that you said you talked about the ghost in the beginning of that movie.
Oh, yeah. Talked about a couple of different ways.
Expound upon that. Because upon you saying that, I have a couple of ways that I would have liked to see that as well.
Like the Aldrich House playing?
Oh, yeah, the Aldrich House.
As being the main villain.
And I'm sorry, and I don't mean to cut you off. Might I say, the Aldrich House was the strongest aspect of that movie. I understand that we have a strong cast. I understand that their acting skills are very much so on par. But the Aldrich House...
implications that are very big, too. But the Aldrich House is fleshed out.
They
gave a backstory to it at the beginning of the film, no less.
Yeah.
Where all of your expectations for the movie going forward are going to be set.
Yeah.
And it's very confusing. I understand.
Very confusing that you would have that much build-up for the Aldrich...
Yeah. Just escape. Never to be brought up again.
Never to be seen again.
No, I mean, I talked on it for sure, but yeah, no, having that be the main focus and the main antagonist, you can keep the film or the scene in the middle of the film where they go and they investigate the Aldrich House at the beginning of the film. I'm sorry. And they realize that ghosts are real, and as she flies away, if you really got to keep Rowan North in there, I have her possess him, and then have that be the reason why she's doing all these crazy things. Have him be an unwilling host.
Yeah.
And her force him to kill himself so she can now finish enacting everything else she needed because she needed, I don't know, she needed physical energy, living energy. She needed a soul to break the barrier.
Yeah. And or even have it so Rowan is this kid. Like, the framework for Rowan is already there. He's misunderstood. He's alone. He's weird. Nobody really likes him. They made that abundantly clear, that Rowan is a weird loner. Absolutely. How about you make her the love interest of Rowan Why?
a
Because
good
he's
point,
weird enough to make it work.
Yeah.
So
He studies all this on his own in the
Yeah.
deep dank basement of the hotel. I mean, and he stands before these mirrors of endless ghosts that bleed into the spirit realm. That would drive anybody crazy. So you see
Absolutely.
this beautiful visage come towards you, even if she's terrifying in all reality, and
even if
that
she's
makes
dead,
sense.
she's into me.
Yeah.
And that
And
can
if
feel,
if I can break this barrier, if I can
Yeah.
sacrifice my physical form, I can be with her.
Exactly.
And that ties back into the stakes. That changes it entirely because now
Yeah.
we've got. I feel for the villain at that point.
Absolutely.
I don't feel anything for Rowan as
No.
he stands, other than I can relate with being the lonely weirdo in the corner that talks to himself. But you know, I'm not attached to him.
Not at all.
I feel the weight to his words when he's saying it,
Yeah.
but then he puts his plan into action, and it's lazy.
A dance montage, Josh, is very unnerving. But if you have
I see
25 cops and 30 military men doing the same thing, not so much.
no
Not
in
so
bright
much.
neon fashion, which highlights a whole other tone issue. But okay, I have one last question.
Sure.
Do you feel like the reason that this film tries as hard as it does is due to all of the trailer backlash that it got before release?
I feel like that definitely has something to do with it. I feel like they were trying to be a movie that lives up to fan expectations, but I feel like they tried way too hard. And it's apparent with a previous question that you asked me, as far as the humor. It just didn't need to be laugh after laugh after laugh after laugh. That didn't make Ghostbusters great in the first place. Yeah, the laughs were there, and when they hit, they hit. Like, Dr. Venkman,
Like
is
a
his-
Twinkie.
Yeah, like a Twinkie. Like, I mean, just so many things. Dr. Venkman, is this true? Yes, it's true. He has no dick. Like, stuff like that. You know, jokes like that.
Off
that
the wall humor.
just off the wall humor, but it wasn't joke after joke. I mean, the most we got out of that was in Ghostbusters 1 with Rick Moranis' character. And even his humor,
he
was
serves to
toned
just be
down.
like and
Yeah.
he's over the top.
he
all
was
the
over
time.
the top, but it just worked. And his comedy wasn't even like in your face comedy. It
No,
was
it's
just
slapstick.
it was just total slapstick. This is my personality comedy. Like the most that
I'm a
they
cocky
probably
guy,
did with
look at
that.
me.
Yeah, the most that they probably did with that was when he ran from his apartment and then ran down the streets of New York, and then he gets to this building trying to get in, and the dog is there, and then he slides down the glass screaming.
Yeah.
Hilarious. But
With this
again,
classic Rick Moranis face.
there was a lot broken up in between that.
A lot.
Not just joke after joke.
And it
after
wasn't just
joke.
it wasn't following his humor continuously throughout it.
Yeah, so that is the biggest thing. And those are probably the biggest changes that we would have made to this movie. Tone down the comedy.
Yeah.
Explore the Aldrich mansion and the ghost.
Or
You
at least just something that's more substantial than
just Rowan.
I just want to kill the human race.
Right,
And
I
I don't
mean-
even know if he really wants to kill the human race.
and you get that he's lonely, but at the same time, you have
Why
this-
does that push him to enslave the human race?
Right, and you have this chick and this ghost chick who, as you said earlier, father said that she was caressed by the devil. You kept her in the basement her
Yes.
entire life.
You have a backstory.
You have this awesome backstory for her, and
We get to see her. And we get to see just how terrifying she is.
and she was terrifying. And the thing is, it's like, oh, well, where's her motivation? We've already told you she's just
She's
evil.
just evil.
And now she finally has a chance to do something about it after all these years. That plot just wrote itself,
Yeah.
essentially.
Like she was like when you're locked in a basement versus willingly living in a basement, you harbor less resentment when you choose to do that,
Yeah.
right? So it's natural to assume that she would harbor a lot of resentment towards the human race. But
And her anger is so great that even in the grave after all these years, bro, you could have easily made it so, oh yeah, this is the anniversary.
I'd be more engaged in that than the dance sequence we got. And I don't want to say that I wasn't engaged with this film all the way.
Yeah.
Because as we've brought up, hopefully have highlighted pretty well, at least, that there are good things going for this movie. There are good ideas here that just weren't fully explored.
Yeah.
You know, whether it be writing laziness, production studio meddling,
technological lore getting thrown out the window.
Not even thrown out the window. Brought in, consulted with, wrote down all their thoughts, changed every single one of their thoughts, and said, yeah, we're not going to do any of that, and we're just going to keep the basic idea, and then we're going to do our own thing that's entirely different from this thing that you told us about. Cool, thanks, bye. You're half in, you're half out. You want to be a Ghostbusters film. You want to be your own thing that's not a Ghostbusters film, but it feels like a Ghostbusters film.
Yeah.
Tone the humor down. Take away at least some of the saturation in those neon lights. Give us a stronger villain. Don't write every single character to be a hilarious dimwit most of the time. And treat your scientists with respect, man.
Yeah.
Like, treat them like it's okay to be smart and intelligent in movies.
You don't have to prove yourself with comedy. Yeah.
Well, I do. Point being, I'm not a multi-million-dollar studio. I'm one person.
Sure.
I think that pretty succinctly summarizes just about everything that we talked about, everything we wanted to get across. Any last thoughts? Anything else you wanted to say?
Looking forward to Ghostbusters 3.
Yeah.
Next summer.
Jason Reitman?
Yeah, Jason Reitman.
Here's to you.
Yeah. I don't think that you deserved all the backlash that you got for saying that you wanted to give it back to the fans, but let's see.
Yeah. Let's see if you actually do that. And, well, this has been... We're the Curbstone Savants. This has been our show. And we'll see you next time.
See you next time.